Look, I need to tell someone this story because people keep asking me what really happened. And I'm tired of everyone having their own version of events. My name's Michaela. I'm 28. And yeah, my marriage fell apart. But before you start making assumptions, just listen to what actually went down because there's way more to this than what people think they know. It all started during the pandemic in 2020. What a complete disaster that whole year was. Right. I was stuck in my tiny apartment, working from home, doing customer support calls all day, and going absolutely stir-crazy. Everyone was losing their minds. People were dying, and I was just existing. That's when I started spending more time online, just trying to connect with people. I met Tyler on some random forum where people were venting about lockdown life. He seemed different from the guys I usually talk to, more grounded, more focused. He had this whole system even during chaos, still working his job in logistics, still working out in his garage, still calling his mom every Sunday. It was actually kind of attractive how organized he was when everything else was falling apart. We started messaging constantly. Constantly. I'd wake up to good morning texts. We'd chat during work breaks, and then spend hours on video calls at night. When you're isolated and scared and the world feels like it's ending, having someone who actually listens to you becomes everything. Tyler was that for me. He was steady when nothing else was. The first time we met in person, I knew he was going to be trouble for me. Not bad trouble, but the kind where you know this person is going to change your whole life. He picked me up in his spotless car, and I mean spotless, like he detailed it before coming to get me, and took me to this little outdoor cafe that was still doing socially distanced seating. He was even better looking in person, and he had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the world when he looked at me. Within 2 months, I was basically living at his place. It wasn't really planned. It just happened. I'd come over for the weekend, and then somehow it was Wednesday and I was still there. He never complained, never made me feel like I was overstaying, actually. He seemed to love having me around. He'd make coffee for both of us in the morning, leave little notes when he went to work, come home with my favorite snacks without me even asking. By the time things started opening back up in 2021, we were completely wrapped up in each other. Everyone said we were moving too fast. But when you spend that much time together in such a weird, intense situation, you either break up or you get serious. We got serious. Tyler proposed in early 2022. Nothing fancy. He did it at home on a random Tuesday night while we were watching Netflix. He just paused the show, got down on one knee right there on the couch, and said he couldn't imagine his life without me. The ring wasn't huge, but it was perfect. And I said yes without even thinking about it. We got married that summer. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Tyler cried during his vows, which should have been sweet, but it kind of embarrassed me. I get being emotional, but he was really going for it. His vows were all about how I saved him during the darkest time in his life, and how he was going to spend forever making me happy. Mine were shorter, more practical. I talked about partnership and building a life together. Looking back now, I can see that Tyler was way more invested in the whole thing than I was. But at the time, it felt right. He was good to me. He was stable. He had his life together, after years of dating guys who couldn't even remember to text me back. Tyler felt like winning the lottery. He was the kind of guy you marry. The kind your mom approves of. The kind who'll never leave you wondering where you stand. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Sometimes stability can feel like a trap. Sometimes when someone loves you that much, that completely, it starts to feel suffocating. Tyler never did anything wrong. Not really. He was just a lot. Always checking in, always wanting to spend time together, always making these grand gestures that felt more like pressure than romance. I should have paid attention to that feeling earlier. I should have recognized that the restlessness I was starting to feel wasn't normal newlywed jitters. But I didn't. I just kept going through the motions, playing the happy wife, telling myself this was what I wanted. And for a while, I almost believed it. By late 2022, we had settled into this routine that Tyler seemed to love, but was slowly driving me insane. He'd wake up at 6 a.m. sharp, make us both coffee, kiss me goodbye like we were in some romance movie, and text me throughout the day asking how I was doing. Sweet, right? Except when someone does that every single day for months, it starts to feel less like love and more like surveillance. Tyler had this need to plan everything, our weekends, our vacations. our future. He'd sit at the kitchen table with his laptop and color-coded calendar, mapping out our lives like some kind of project manager. What do you think about visiting my parents in March? Or should we start looking at houses next year? Always we, always us, always together. And look, I appreciated that he wanted to include me in everything, but sometimes I just wanted to exist without having to consult someone else about every little decision. Sometimes I wanted to go out with my friends without him texting me, asking when I'd be home. Sometimes I wanted to watch something on TV that wasn't his choice. The worst part was how perfect he was about everything. He never forgot anniversaries, never left dishes in the sink, never came home in a bad mood without apologizing for it. He was like this ideal husband checklist come to life. And it was exhausting. How do you complain about someone who's trying so hard to make you happy? How do you explain that their perfection is making you feel trapped? I started picking fights over stupid things just to get some space. I'd get annoyed when he reorganized the bathroom cabinet or when he bought groceries without asking what I wanted. Tyler would just apologize and try to fix whatever I was upset about, which somehow made it worse. I wanted him to fight back, to show some backbone, to give me a reason to be angry that made sense. My friends thought I was crazy. Tyler's amazing. They'd say, "You're so lucky." And they were right, which made me feel even more messed up. Here was this guy who loved me completely, who would do anything for me, and I was sitting there feeling like I was slowly suffocating. I started staying late at work just to avoid going home to his eager face and his "How was your day?" Beautiful, routine. I'd make plans with friends more often, always with some excuse about needing girl time. Tyler never complained, never made me feel guilty. He'd just kiss me goodbye and tell me to have fun, which somehow made me feel worse about wanting to get away from him. That's when Jason reached out. It was a random Tuesday in early 2023 when I got the friend request on Facebook. Jason Martinez, my ex from college. We'd dated for about a year when I was 22, and it had been one of those intense, messy relationships that ended badly but left you with all these unresolved feelings. You know the type, the guy who was wrong for you in every way, but made you feel more alive than anyone else ever had. I stared at that friend request for like an hour before accepting it. I told myself it was just curiosity, just wanting to see what he was up to. Within minutes, he was messaging me. "Michaela, can't believe I found you on here. You look amazing. How have you been?" We started talking, just casual stuff at first. He was living about an hour away, working in sales, recently single. He asked about my life, and I found myself downplaying the marriage thing. "Yeah, I'm married," I said, like it was just some minor detail instead of the most important thing about my current situation. Jason was exactly the same, charming, a little dangerous, the kind of guy who made you feel like you were the most interesting person in the world when you were talking to him. He remembered things about me that Tyler didn't even know, little details from when we were together that I'd forgotten I'd ever shared with anyone. "Remember that time we drove to the beach at 2 a.m., just because you said you'd never seen the ocean at night?" He wrote, "You made me stop at that 24-hour diner on the way back, and you ordered pancakes at 4 in the morning. I did remember. I remembered everything about that night, how spontaneous it felt, how alive I felt, how different I was with him than I was with anyone else. Tyler would never do something like that. Tyler would want to plan it, check the weather, make sure we had enough gas, pack snacks for the road." The conversations with Jason started innocent enough, but they quickly became the highlight of my day. I'd find myself checking my phone constantly, hoping for a new message from him. I started deleting our conversations so Tyler wouldn't see them if he happened to look at my phone, which he never did anyway because he trusted me completely. Jason and I started talking about meeting up, just as friends. He said, "I'd love to catch up properly." I knew it was a bad idea, but I also couldn't stop thinking about it. When was the last time I'd felt excited about anything? When was the last time I'd done something just because I wanted to, not because it fit into Tyler's perfect little plan for our perfect little life? I met Jason at a coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon, when Tyler thought I was shopping with my sister Carmen. The moment I saw him walk in, my stomach dropped. He looked good, really good, older, more confident, but with that same smile that used to make me forget my own name. We talked for 3 hours, about everything and nothing, about who we used to be, who we'd become, what we missed about being young and stupid. He told me about his job, his apartment, his plans to maybe move somewhere warmer. I told him about work, about Tyler, about feeling like I was living someone else's life. "You seem different," he said, stirring his coffee. "More settled, I guess. Is that what you wanted?" I didn't know how to answer that question. Was it what I wanted? I thought it was. I thought Tyler was what I wanted. But sitting there with Jason, feeling more like myself than I had in months, I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake. Nothing happened that day. We just talked, hugged goodbye, and went our separate ways. But something had shifted. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about how easy it was to be with him, about how he made me feel like the person I used to be before I became Tyler's wife. Tyler noticed the change in me immediately. "You seem happier lately," he said one night while we were making dinner together. "Did something good happen at work?" I lied and said yes, that I was just feeling better about things in general. He smiled and kissed my forehead, and I felt like the worst person in the world, but not bad enough to stop texting Jason. We started meeting regularly, always somewhere Tyler wouldn't see us, always with some cover story about where I was really going. Jason never pushed for anything physical, but the emotional intimacy we were building felt just as dangerous. He listened to me complain about Tyler without judging me, without trying to fix anything, without making me feel crazy for wanting something different. "You're allowed to want more than just stability," he told me one afternoon when I was venting about how predictable my life had become. "You're allowed to want passion, excitement, someone who challenges you instead of just accommodating you." That's when I knew I was in trouble, because he was saying everything I'd been thinking, but hadn't been able to put into words. Tyler accommodated me. He made space for me in his life, rearranged his plans around mine, adapted to whatever I needed. But he never challenged me, never pushed back, never made me work for his attention or his love. Jason made me work for it. He was unpredictable, sometimes distant, sometimes intense. Being with him felt like a drug. I never knew exactly what I was going to get, which made every interaction feel electric. The first time we kissed, it was in his car after one of our coffee dates. I should have felt guilty, should have stopped it, should have gone home and confessed everything to Tyler. Instead, I felt more alive than I had in years. It was like waking up from a coma I didn't even know I was in. After that, things escalated quickly. We started meeting at his apartment. I'd tell Tyler I was running errands or meeting friends, and instead I'd drive to Jason's place and spend hours talking, kissing, slowly crossing lines I'd never thought I'd cross. Tyler never suspected anything. He was so trusting, so secure in our relationship, that it never occurred to him that I might be lying to him. When I came home late, he'd just ask if I had a good time. When I was distant or distracted, he'd assume I was tired from work and make me tea. The guilt was eating me alive, but not enough to stop. Because for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. I felt wanted in a way that wasn't safe or comfortable or predictable. Jason wanted me, but he didn't need me the way Tyler did. He wasn't trying to build a life around me or plan our future together. He just wanted to be with me in the moment. And that felt like freedom. I started comparing everything Tyler did to how Jason would handle the same situation. When Tyler planned a romantic dinner at home, I thought about how Jason would have surprised me with something spontaneous. When Tyler asked about my day, I thought about how Jason would have made me laugh instead of just listening patiently. It wasn't fair to Tyler, but I couldn't help myself. The physical affair started about 2 months after we reconnected. I'd been at Jason's apartment, and we were on his couch talking about some movie we both loved. And suddenly we were kissing, and then his hands were under my shirt. And I didn't stop him. I wanted him in a way I hadn't wanted anyone in years, including my own husband. Afterward, lying in Jason's bed while he traced patterns on my back, I felt like I'd finally come back to life. I also felt like I'd just destroyed everything good in my life. But in that moment, it was worth it. I became an expert at covering my tracks. I'd shower at Jason's place before going home, change my clothes, check my appearance in the car mirror to make sure I looked normal. I'd stop at the grocery store or the pharmacy on the way home so I'd have bags to show Tyler, evidence of where I'd supposedly been. Tyler never questioned any of it. He'd help me put away groceries, ask about my friends, tell me about his day. He was so trusting, so loving, so completely unaware that his wife was living a double life. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me with this expression of pure adoration, and I'd have to excuse myself to go to the bathroom because I couldn't handle the guilt. But the guilt wasn't strong enough to make me stop, Because those afternoons with Jason were the only time I felt like myself anymore. They were the only time I felt truly wanted, truly alive, truly free from the suffocating perfection of my marriage to Tyler. I told myself I'd end it eventually. I told myself it was just a phase, just something I needed to get out of my system before I could go back to being a good wife. I told myself a lot of things to justify what I was doing, but the truth was simpler and uglier than that. I didn't want to stop. That's how I ended up in Jason's bed on a Wednesday afternoon in March, completely lost in the moment. When I heard Tyler's voice calling my name from downstairs, I've never moved so fast in my life. Jason was scrambling for his clothes. I was trying to find my bra, and Tyler's footsteps were coming up the stairs. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, no explanation that would make this okay. Tyler appeared in the doorway, just as I was pulling my shirt over my head. The look on his face, I'll never forget it. It wasn't anger or rage like I expected. It was just complete devastation, like he was watching his entire world collapse in real time. He didn't yell. He didn't scream or throw things or demand explanations. He just stood there for what felt like forever, looking back and forth between Jason and me, and then he turned around and walked away. I heard the front door slam, heard his car start, heard him drive away. Jason was trying to say something to me, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of my heart pounding. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I was supposed to have control over this situation, supposed to be able to manage both relationships until I figured out what I wanted. But Tyler had come home early from work to surprise me, and instead he'd gotten the worst surprise of his life. I drove home in a panic, not knowing what I was going to find. Tyler's car wasn't in the driveway. I went inside and called his name, but the house was empty. His wedding ring was on the kitchen counter next to a note that just said, "I'm staying at Derek's. Don't call me." I called anyway, over and over. He wouldn't answer. I texted him, begging him to come home so we could talk, but he didn't respond. I called Derek's house, but Derek said Tyler didn't want to speak to me, and I needed to respect that. For 3 days, I didn't hear from him. 3 days of sitting in our house, surrounded by all the evidence of our life together, wondering if I'd just thrown away the best thing that ever happened to me for a few months of excitement with my ex-boyfriend. When Tyler finally came home, it was to pack a bag and tell me he'd filed for divorce. "Tyler, please," I said, following him around our bedroom while he threw clothes into a suitcase. "Can we just talk about this? Can we try to work through it?" He stopped packing and looked at me. "Work through what?" "Michaela, work through you lying to me for months. Work through you bringing another man into our bed. Work through you making me look like an idiot." "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," I said, which was the stupidest thing I could have said. "How is it supposed to happen?" he asked. "Were you planning to tell me eventually, or were you just going to keep lying to me indefinitely?" I didn't have an answer for that, because I hadn't thought that far ahead. I'd been living in the moment, taking what I wanted without considering the consequences, and now the consequences were staring me in the face. Tyler finished packing and headed for the door. "My lawyer will be in touch," he said without looking at me. "Tyler, wait. I love you. I know I messed up, but I love you." He stopped with his hand on the doorknob. "No, you don't," he said quietly. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. If you loved me, you would have talked to me about whatever was wrong instead of going to him." And then he was gone. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Tyler wanted it over with as quickly as possible, and he had the evidence he needed to make sure it went his way. I tried everything to get him to reconsider, showing up at his work, calling his friends, even reaching out to his mother. Nothing worked. He'd made up his mind, and Tyler was nothing if not decisive once he'd made a decision. Jason disappeared from my life almost immediately after Tyler caught us. Turns out, the thrill of the affair was a lot more appealing to him than dealing with the messy aftermath of a broken marriage. He stopped returning my calls, blocked me on social media, and basically acted like our months together had never happened. I guess I was just a fun distraction for him, not someone worth fighting for. So there I was, alone in a house I couldn't afford on my own, with a divorce lawyer I couldn't really afford either, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. My friends didn't know what to say to me. My family was disappointed but trying to be supportive. Everyone kept asking me why I'd done it, and I didn't have a good answer. The truth was, I'd been selfish. I'd been bored and restless, and instead of working on my marriage or talking to Tyler about how I was feeling, I'd chosen the easy way out. I'd chosen excitement over stability, passion over partnership, and in the end, I'd lost everything. Tyler moved on with his life like I'd never been part of it. He got a new apartment, started going to the gym more, reconnected with friends he'd neglected during our marriage. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he seemed happier, more confident, more like the person he'd been before he'd gotten so wrapped up in taking care of me. 8 months after our divorce was finalized, I ran into him at a restaurant. He was with a woman I didn't recognize, someone from his work. I think she was pretty in a natural way, the kind of person who looked comfortable in her own skin. They were laughing about something, and Tyler looked relaxed and genuine in a way I hadn't seen in years. He saw me watching them and gave me a polite nod, the kind you'd give to any acquaintance you hadn't seen in a while. No anger, no hurt, no emotion at all. I'd become a stranger to him, someone from his past who no longer mattered. That's when it really hit me what I'd lost. Not just Tyler, but the version of myself that had been worthy of someone like him. I'd traded a man who loved me unconditionally for a few months of excitement, with someone who didn't care about me at all. I'd given up security and partnership and a future for nothing more than the temporary thrill of feeling wanted by someone who ultimately didn't want me. I wish I could say I learned some profound lesson from all of this, that I became a better person or figured out how to be happy on my own. But the truth is, I just became more careful about my choices. I'm dating again now, but I keep my expectations low and my walls high. I don't trust my own judgment anymore, and I definitely don't trust anyone else's promises. Tyler deserved better than what I gave him. He deserved someone who appreciated what they had, instead of constantly looking for something more. He deserved someone who would fight for their marriage instead of running away from it the moment things got difficult. I know people think I'm the villain in this story, and maybe they're right. I made selfish choices that hurt someone who loved me, and I have to live with that. But I also have to live with the knowledge that I had something real and good and rare, and I threw it away because I was too immature to recognize its value. That's the part that hurts the most, not that Tyler moved on, but that he moved on so completely, I barely left a mark on his life, while he completely changed mine. And now I get to spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to work on my marriage instead of brave enough to destroy it.